Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
I'm here to save the day. I'm here to save the day.
Soon I will be invincible. Because comics. Welcome to Because Comics. This is episode 53, our second year anniversary. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and I'm joined by my co-host, the puppeteering Mike Christensen.
Yay, puppeteering. That's a thing that I do. Don't tell everyone.
Why?
Because I'm manipulating everybody.
Whoa, really?
No.
Is that why you have so many strings on your fingers?
No.
I mean, that's so many.
Yeah, these are to remember all of the people who I'm manipulating.
Wow. Let's talk about comics, everybody.
Comics, everybody.
And a quick shout out, like I said at the top, it's our second year anniversary, Mike.
We've done this for 2 years now.
We have.
Yeah.
It's been, 53 episodes.
Yeah.
That's more than 52. Arguably less than 54.
Arguably?
I mean, one could argue in a court of law. They'd be right. I said arguable. Isn't that what it means?
No.
Yes.
I don't think Jay knows what things mean,
I
guys.
don't think I know what I think about things. Guys, we usually talk about comics at the top of the episode.
So let's do that.
All right. So do you want to ask me for my bullets?
Sure. So let's do that. We talk about what's on our pull list, what we pick up at the comic book shop every time it comes out. Jay, what you reading?
I am reading Marvel's Moon Knight. Wait, what? I already talked about Moon Knight.
Oh
on
no,
this podcast.
what a shock. Jay's talking about a comic he's talked about before.
I've never done that before. Especially not with
Batman.
characters that fight people at night.
Batman.
Look, I only do it for characters that are Batman or analogs of Batman in another universe.
I know, Moon Knight, pretty similar.
Pretty close. But basically, Moon Knight got a new creative team. Now, this isn't strange for Moon Knight, because Moon Knight has gotten many creative teams over the past several years, and it's because Moon Knight's kind of like a thing people come into and do for accurately for all of these recent creative teams, 6 issues. It started with Warren Ellis and Declan Shalvey. I mean, it didn't start with them. There's Moon Knights plenty before them, but recently it's been like that, with Declan Shalvey and Warren Ellis coming in and doing their 6-issue run. Then another team came in and did their 6-issue run, and then another team did 6 issues. And then there hasn't been Moon Knight for a little while, and it's been sad.
That's also pretty consistent with the Moon Knight tradition.
With Moon Knight. But right now, this new starting issue run is looking to change all that. It is written by Jeff Lemire and drawn by Greg Smallwood. And Jeff Lemire, he's been mentioned on this podcast quite a few times. Plutona for me and All New Hawkeye for you, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And he's great, and he's really kind of starting from scratch with Moon Knight again. It's Moon Knight 1. And with this, there's actually an intended through line that's longer than 6 issues, like the previous creative teams. Jeff Lemire has already admitted that he's plotted out 12 issues and plans to go even farther if he can with this character, which is exciting for me because I love Moon Knight. And I love seeing the greatest hits done by different artists. I mean, that's really fun in its own right. But it is really interesting the place and the starting point that Jeff is going with this issue, because he's really starting at basic level. This comic for Moon Knight, when it reboots, it starts over where we're looking at Moon Knight really as who he is and really if he is in fact crazy. This is the big thing about his character. It's really unique to him out of the entire Marvel universe, or really any superheroes, is that he is very openly and talked about quite frequently a crazy person.
He is diagnosable.
Yeah. He has multiple personalities. I mean, it is not hidden. It's not hinted at. It's definitely a thing. And Jeff Lemire starts from that. We actually open in this comic with Moon Knight, Mark Spector, in an insane asylum. It opens up with him there, with him almost questioning if he is in fact Moon Knight, if Moon Knight is real, if any of this stuff is real, all of these experiences that he's had over the years. And it takes a really interesting approach that is not only one, I think, a really important way to start with a character. If you're going to start at ground zero, you're going to talk about one of the big deciding points that differentiates Moon Knight from everybody else is the crazy part, but also because you're starting focusing on that character. What I loved about Warren Ellis and Declan Shalvey was they explored the character through kind of doing his greatest hits. This is really a firm focus on Mark Spector. It's not him chasing down a villain or him, hey, dealing with this, but he's also Moon Knight. It's talking about what is Moon Knight and what is this character. And honestly, I think they're taking a very mature and interesting approach to discussing mental illness and how it is addressed. And it's a really interesting topic that I like and I like to read about. And they do a pretty good job of addressing it without doing it in like a ridiculous fashion in this comic and hopefully in this run. What is really cool too is it unfolds like a mystery because we start in an insane asylum, and much like movies like Beautiful Mind or movies like Shutter Island, or even in some ways Memento, where we're looking at the story from the POV of the character, it's fun because you get to see what is real and what isn't. And Jeff Lemire and the team play really well with what could be real, what could be fake, and it goes really far in both directions, so that not only does the real world seem unsure and weird at certain times, but also the surreal, crazy Moon Knight world that he finds himself in this comic and probably in this run also seem a little too far-fetched.
Well, to be fair, far-fetched in the Marvel Universe is a really tricky thing to pin down.
Yeah, that's a tough line. But it is fun to see, like, okay, that's not right. Okay, but that's not right either. So I'm very interested to see where this run goes. It's a really cool mystery box that's unfolding, and I really recommend people to check it out, especially if you've never heard of or read Moon Knight. This is a great time to jump on and really get invested in the character.
Cool.
So, Mike, what is your pull?
My comic's also a comic I've talked about on the show before.
What? You were just scolding me before, sir.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm a hypocrite. You can at some point open an episode with the hypocritical Mike Christensen, and we can look back at this episode as evidence.
Fantastic.
Yeah, write it down. Rat Queens, guys. I talked about it back in issue 3, I believe, 2 or 3. Rat Queens. It's a comic book from Image Comics written by Kurtis Weibe and art by Tess Fowler. They had a bit of a hiatus period last year, so they're only actually on their 15th issue.
I never know what issue number Rat Queens is on because it is so infrequent every now and then.
Well, because they've had some, pulling back the veil a little bit, and obviously some people will wonder how I talked about a comic almost 2 years ago, and I'm only talking about 15 issues later now. It's because they've had a hard time with their artists. Their first artist had to leave the book for reasons that are very Googleable. You can go figure those out.
Yep.
The second artist had some health issues and had to leave for that reason, and then it just took them a long time to figure out who was going to kind of come on board next.
Right.
But Tess Fowler's come on board, and she's fantastic. It's more cartoony than it was before, but not in it doesn't feel like a different book. It's just a different art style, and that happens in Marvel or DC all the time. It's only in Image Comics that it seems weird because it's a creator-owned thing.
Right.
But Tess Fowler really does capture who these characters are and the sort of weirdness of the world, where it's, for those who don't remember or didn't listen to, or, who are new to the series of Rat Queens, it is about a group of girls who are adventurers in a D&D style world, but they are foul-mouthed and they're into drugs and sex and violence and just very much id in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And there's a sort of interesting almost modernization to the world where their outfits are to a degree medieval influenced, but they're also very much oh, well, that's a hipster. That is, or especially the rockabilly, oh, that's a rockabilly wizard, or the hippie, which I guess could exist in any time. But especially when we start seeing flashbacks of who these characters were, we see one of the characters when she was in college is oh, well, that's a goth girl. That's just what goth girls dress like. That's very much, all right, I guess it's not a t-shirt, but still,
yeah,
it's a tunic.
Close enough.
Yeah, but that's sort of how the series has always felt. It felt very authentic, and that's one of the cool things about it is that despite the weird fantasy things that are happening almost in the background more often than not, or in a sort of matter-of-fact way, the world feels real and the people feel genuine. And they just wrapped up their third arc. I think you can pretty much qualify issue 15 as the end of an arc because issue 15 is a big one, and I'm not going to say why, but major events happen in the arc that ended in 15, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the series goes forward, where the direction of the series is going. But I'm really excited because I was in the same boat as you, Jay, where I wasn't sure exactly where Rat Queens was up to, and I was well, I'll probably catch up with it in trade or something. But then I saw people on Twitter just going nuts about issue 15. I was all right, I gotta catch up. And it's a really good series, and it's just a lot of fun, and the character work right out of the gate was exceptional, but it has just continued to get stronger in and in the second arc. One of the things that they did was start pulling back and seeing flashbacks of some of these characters when they were younger, and starting to get glimpses into, and maybe not even that long ago, but just moments from their past leading up to when we met them, before we knew them, and kind of who they were, little glimpses of oh, well, that person hates that person now, but there they are being chums in the past, so we're knowing oh, well, they had some sort of history, and we're only getting glimpses still, but everything we see really informs who they are, and they feel really well developed, and you can tell that to Kurtis Weibe, these are real people. This is a real world to him. And, Tess Fowler is there to help make it real for all of us.
Yeah.
Also, there's a dragon named Daniel, and that's a character that I'm not going to say anything about that dragon named Daniel, but he is a character that I enjoy reading about.
Really? A dragon named Daniel?
More about that when you guys read it. But yeah.
I completely believe that character is lovable.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
I didn't say lovable. I just said
That's okay.
enjoyable to read. That is how I would describe him.
Excellent.
Without getting into any spoiler territory.
All right. Guys, you have a dragon named Daniel to look forward to. Check out Rat Queens. And Mike, please take us to our main segment. Let's kick things off.
Their 53rd. What if Captain America had been elected president? Guys, there's a new Captain America movie coming out on Friday.
Are you
I guess.
sure it's not a Spider-Man movie that also features Captain America?
Hey, no spoilers, Jay.
Oh, okay.
No spoilers. Civil War is coming out, and it looks great.
Yeah.
And we are not going to talk about the Civil War comic because if anyone hasn't read it, it is very vignette style. It's really difficult to do in the main segment format. Also, I don't think it's a very good comic. But most importantly, it feels like you're watching one of those Lost recaps, before a new season of Lost, where they'd be like, here's all these little scenes, and it's like, well, if you want to see this actual scene, go check out the Punisher comic that's coming out right now, which is what it was meant to do. That was the whole design of that comic.
It was a huge crossover into multiple books, and now here's the thing:
20 plus books.
I read the Civil War run when it first came out, and I did enjoy it. It wasn't great, but it was still enjoyable for me.
It's
at the
enjoyable.
time.
It's a big Hollywood movie.
But there was the biggest problem for me was that it was just jumping all to so many comics that I would never read, but I had to because I'm a completionist and I want to find out what somebody was doing in one random
you got to figure out what's happening in Thunderbolts or whatever.
Absolutely.
But for all those reasons, because it would just be a nightmare to do in the podcast, we're not going to talk about Civil War. We are, however, going to talk about a presidential election and also Captain America.
Excellent.
So in issue 250 of Captain America back in 1980, he was recruited, or approached, I should say, by Samuel T. Underwood on behalf of the Populist Party, which is, of course, not a real thing. Or if it was, maybe it was in the 80s. I don't think it was, though. That'd be a weird creative choice for Marvel.
Yeah, just be like, we're going to latch on to this party.
This real party. He was approached to be their candidate for president. They were a new party. They wanted to try to form a new way of doing things, but all their candidates were just the same thing as all the other candidates and all the other parties. They wanted something different. So, a superhero. That's pretty different.
I mean, that seems pretty obvious. He's Captain America. That's
They
easy.
also, he goes, he's going to think about it. They leak it in the press that he's considering it.
Oh.
And, he spends most of the issue debating, whether or not to run. And at the end, he attends this rally and everyone's all excited. But he finally decides, what he's doing in his Avenger is too important. So he declines the nomination. And the issue ends with a room full of supporters just slowly dispersing, and the ground is just cluttered in hats and flyers and signs, and it's kind of heartbreaking.
Oh.
But what if that didn't happen?
Oh, wait, is this a what-if story?
This is a what-if story. So for those not familiar, Marvel had a run of comics for a really long time called What If? And the framing device was always that the Beyonder, who is this cosmic force who watches all of reality and takes notes. I'm sorry, this is the Watcher, not the Beyonder.
Okay.
Beyonder is a different character. This is the Watcher.
Okay, so it's... Okay, there we go.
Yep.
And his name's Wandu?
It is Uatu. We're going way deep with what I'm saying. So,
We are.
So most important thing is that's the framing device. Is he's like, oh yeah, no, I take notes on all of time and space. Also, I have these notes on this other realities. So hey, what if Spider-Man had died this, whatever, it's just random junk.
The Watcher's got a lot of free time on his hands, guys. He just sits around and basically watches what is, I guess, Marvel TV 24/7?
He watches Marvel, just the universe.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Anyway, this is What If, number 26. What if Captain America had been elected president? 1981, written by Mike W. Barr, art by Herb Trimpe and Mike Esposito. I apologize if any of those names are mispronounced, as I imagine they probably are. In this version, we see the opening scene play out. We see a recap, basically, of what that issue was, and we see him wrestling with the decision, but at the last minute, at the rally, he changes his mind. He decides to accept the nomination. The news is, of course, a flutter because, hey, look, a superhero running for office. And outside the Baxter building, they ask the Fantastic Four for comments. Fantastic Four say, no, I'm sorry, we don't endorse political candidates as a rule. And Ben Grimm grabs the mic. He says, I'm voting for Captain America. Like, because he doesn't care. 'Cause
Obviously.
He says, I'm voting for Cap. And anyone who doesn't like it is a Yancey Streeter.
Wow.
Because, you know, he's Ben Grimm. And, like, who's going to tell him not to do that?
Exactly.
I mean, his family probably afterwards. But, like, whatever. It's an imaginary story. J. Jonah Jameson, you know, is not super comfortable with a superhero being elected to public office.
Is it because that he's repeatedly slandered one almost every single day in a newspaper?
Especially once Spider-Man swings by his window and says, hey, you know, I'm rumored to be Cap's running mate. You know, the amazing Spider Veep got a real nice ring to it. And Jameson's like, get me the head of the Washington desk or whatever. Because he's, you know, he's got a whole stick up his butt about superheroes.
He does.
You know, Cap's party is debating running mates, trying to figure out what to do.
Oh my God, who is going to be his running mate?
And Underwood shows up with a candidate trailing behind him, a possible running mate. His name is Senator Andrew Jackson Hawk, and he is an African-American man, which will be important in just a minute. But as soon as he walks into this room full of advisors, full of, you know, political people, not just Cap, he just says, no. You know, he was willing to talk to Cap, but now he's got this room full of yes men, and he wants to make sure, basically, that he's doing this right. And immediately gets the wrong impression, or you know, maybe not the wrong impression, but Cap says, no, you know what? I'm not a puppet for the party. I'm my own man. I'm going to take you into my office. We're going to talk privately. And the yes men are like, well, wait, no, but notes and things. And he's like, no, guys, we're going to talk as people. And, you know, Hawk makes it clear he's not interested in being Cap's ticket to the minority vote. He doesn't want that. And Cap says, look, I think I can get elected. I have no history of public office. I need to know how to work with Congress. I need to be able to do that. I need someone who is good at politics.
Who's legitimately a politician.
Yeah. I like your voting record. You know how to work within Washington. I need you for those reasons.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And, you know, Cap and Hawk are a pretty strong ticket. And now that they are, the politicians, specifically the other candidates, Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan, are starting to weigh in. Yeah, Captain America has no political experience. And you know who also? We don't actually know who he is. We've never seen his face.
Wait, they don't know Captain America is Steve Rogers?
That is not public information.
Wait, so Captain America is just hanging out in an office with his mask on all the time?
He's in costume in all these scenes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm not saying Steve Rogers.
Mr. Captain America, please. So they all address him as like Mr. Captain America.
I mean, Captain is also a title.
True.
It is a rank.
That's true. You sure people don't go by Mr. Captain?
I mean, maybe like Jeremy Fox might if you asked him.
That's true. He probably does.
But, you know, Cap promises to reveal his face once he's sworn in. I would imagine he is reluctant to do that in case he loses and then he's just a public superhero.
Yeah.
Much like in Civil War, right, guys?
Yeah.
Relevant.
So relevant, Mike. Congrats.
Don't read that comic, but we're excited about the movie. Also, you know, anytime they're giving public addresses, his party does show off Hawk and his family because, look, they're normal. They provide a little normalcy because it's a man and his wife and his two kids standing next to a superhero.
Yeah, it's not two superheroes running together.
Yeah. As the election ticks closer, you know, in private, Cap's feeling a little more uncertain. You know, the night before the election, Cap tells Hawk, I'm not a glib leader like the other candidates. I don't pretend to have all the answers. You know, all the candidates are being asked about an uprising in San Pedro, which is in South America, in the Marvel Universe anyway. They're all being asked how they would handle it, and he doesn't really have an answer. You know, all the others have their trite given answers, given their responses. He doesn't. He's not that guy. Hawk reassures him every candidate has doubts. But Steve is still a rock of integrity, especially compared to everyone else out there in politics.
Oh, yeah.
Cap wins the election because that was the title of the story. That was what's going to happen. Yeah, he wins, and on the night before his inauguration, he's still at his desk as Steve Rogers, rushing to get the latest drawings in the mail to his editor because, I don't know if you know this, he has a secret identity as an artist for a newspaper.
I did not know that.
That was the case for a while, and it was 100% never necessary for Captain America.
Artist for a newspaper?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is why, when you go back to like the first Avenger, he's doodling in his notebook. Like, he is an artist. That's part of who he is.
I never knew that. That's crazy.
Because it doesn't matter, and it's not important at all.
It's not an essential character building block?
He does not need a day job.
That's
like,
true.
I'm sure they got them some stories out of it or whatever, but like, it does not, you do not need it at all.
Yeah, he's Captain American all the time.
Yeah, he should just be Steve Rogers. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, it's his thing. He's sworn in full costume.
Awesome.
And then he says, I'm going to, an unprecedented move, I'm going to keep my first campaign promise. And he unmasks, and we cut to his neighbor / potential romantic interest, Bernie Rosenthal, who's, she's pretty surprised that her neighbor just showed up as a superhero and president.
And is the most American ever.
Yep. As he begins his speech, a gunshot rings out.
Oh no.
Someone takes a shot at him. Everyone ducks for cover. The Secret Service tries to rush in and protect Captain America, but he instead puts on his mask, leaps across the street, and dives in through a window. And the Secret Service storm the building, only to find Cap perp walking the assassin outside.
Whoa.
And he's like, here you go. He hands off the shooter. He says, all right, I got to go finish my speech.
The only president who just charges after the assassin and brings him to justice.
That is not true.
You know what? That's actually not
Andrew
true.
Jackson did
Andrew
that.
Jackson.
And he beat the stuffing out of it,
Oh,
dude.
yeah. Andrew Jackson was a crazy president. Look him up.
He's insane. Also, this reminds me a lot of Roosevelt, who got shot and then finished his speech.
Yeah, which is pretty awesome.
The administration's doing pretty well. We see that they position a satellite to collect solar energy to help develop renewable energy, because one of Captain America's campaign platforms basically was to free America from its reliance on oil.
Oh, okay.
Meanwhile, in South America, that uprising we were talking about, the revolutionaries are continuing to fight against their dictator, and Steve sends weapons in to help, but he's pretty wary of entering another Vietnam situation, so he's not going to send any soldiers.
Right.
But he does have these weapons that are pretty advanced. They're actually developed from the same technology as the space station, so they're like solar laser guns.
Oh.
He describes them as solar powered, but like that makes it seem like they can only work in the daylight, which
Yeah.
I don't think is what they mean.
Yeah, that's probably a bad intention.
I don't think that's what they mean. The revolutionaries rise up, but as the narration tells us, soldiers will not fight without a leader. And guerrilla philosopher Jacinto Mores, a valiant voice in South American politics for years, a man thought dead, has returned once again, escaping a dictator's prison or the cold clutch of death itself to lead the people to victory. And on the steps of the Capitol, Jacinto declares San Pedro a free democracy once again. He is elected president and extends an offer to meet with Steve Rogers.
All right.
Hawk can't put his finger on why, but he's nervous about Steve leaving and going to San Pedro, because he's not just Captain America anymore. If something happens, which, look, that country just went through a pretty unstable time.
True.
If something happens, it's not just his life on the line anymore.
It's the country's.
Pretty much.
He's the president.
But Steve says, look, I would welcome action if it came. I'm pretty itchy for something, but
That's good to have in your president.
but like, well, again, we've had a lot of presidents like that.
Right.
But besides, he needs to take this opportunity to cement relations with the people of San Pedro. America needs allies right now. He has to go either way. President Rogers lands. He's greeted by cheering people, and President Mores apologizes for the lack of fanfare. I'm not going to do the accent. I'm not going to do a South American accent, but he says, a friend of liberty such as yourself should be greeted with a full orchestra. But Rogers says, look, if they're the cheers of free people, President Mores, that's the finest welcome I could desire.
Aw, Captain America.
These are good guys.
Yeah.
Good people who are alike in a way. At the presidential manor, Rogers notices several priceless works of art on the walls. Yet the people of the country are still poor. Surely this art could be sold to help feed the people. Jacinto Mores responds, but why should the mighty aid the low when it is the lot of the low to serve the mighty?
What?
Then he pulls his face off and, oh yeah, it's the Red Skull.
Oh, no.
Yep, Red Skull's here, guys.
I was going to say, I was like, when something's going to go wrong, and this is not just like, hey, an introspective political story about Captain America.
I mean, a little bit. And also, Red Skull's here, guys.
Oh, man.
Skull says, and I will do the accent, the real Mores was just as gullible as you. It was child's play to delete him and take his place after I found him.
I love that he says to delete him.
I know. Rogers asks why the charade, but then Skull pulls out one of those solar-powered ray guns. Thanks for those, President Rogers.
Yeah.
And shoots Steve. And before he blacks out, Red Skull says, really, dear Steve, I thought you would have guessed. Well, we'll see. We'll see where this accent goes. We are natural counterparts, you and I. We belong together, like good and evil, fire and water, strength and weakness. You are a country of your own. Could I do any less? By the way, fire and water and strength and weakness, these things don't go together.
They don't, no.
They are opposites.
They are opposites of one another.
That's fine if you wanted to just say you're opposites or counterparts, but like, don't say that they belong together. That's not really how science works. Whatever. Anyway.
He worked through most of his speech. Red Skull rehearsed it, but he just didn't get to that last part.
He just riffs, man. He's just like, I'm just going for it.
An improviser.
I'm going for it. I'm not sure. I have this metaphor I'm kind of working on. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to see what comes up. Steve wakes up in a dungeon. He's chained to the ceiling, but the chains are very, very high. The ceiling's very, very high, so he can't just...
As we know, that reduces his ability to
Well,
rip it
it's
off.
going to be harder for him to, like, tug on the chains because it's going to be very obvious. That's my feeling.
I guess.
It also, like, his arms are hanging. It kind of looks like he's being crucified because they're tied to his shoulders.
Oh.
And he's, like, dangling a little bit. Like, his, like, feet are kind of brushing the ground.
I just love that Red Skull was like, well, he's president, so obviously I have to be president now.
Yeah, that's my favorite
like,
part.
That's amazing.
I love it. It feels like Doctor Who. Like, when the Master is like, oh, well, you did this. I want that now. Like, that's what he did all the time.
So crazy.
Also, apparently, underneath his suit, he was wearing his Captain America uniform because
Wait, he was?
I guess because he is in a Captain America uniform with tatters of suit on, and his shield is just lying on the floor of the dungeon.
So wait, where was his shield then?
I don't know the answer to that question, and I so badly wish I did, but I don't.
He's like, look, I promise, wearing this all the time, always, is gonna come in handy. I hope not.
Also, I have a shield on. I guess it's on my back.
It's collapsible now.
I don't know. Whatever.
Thanks, Ant-Man.
Just outside the bars, at a computer terminal, Red Skull is working on something. Apparently, he mentions, the Secret Service is figuring out just how impregnable the mansion is right now. They can't get inside.
Oh, no.
Captain America says Red Skull can't expect to ransom him, and Skull says, of course not, Captain. But, as Captain America, you are merely a symbol of your country. As President Rogers, you are the living embodiment of it. When your countrymen see you shackled, their will to resist will be severely weakened. It is an old plan, but the oldest plans are often the most reliable, as the Führer once remarked to me. In case you forgot, this guy was a super Nazi.
Yeah, just in case.
Red Skull buzzes into the TV feed of everyone in North America and broadcasts himself when showing the chained up Steve Rogers behind him, and shares the news that he has hacked that solar satellite, that one, and turned it into a laser.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I actually was like, man, I wonder, that's an interesting thing to add to this comic, but I bet it'll never come back.
It did in a big way. And he fires the laser into the reflecting pool in Washington, D.C. to demonstrate, like, hey, look, I have a laser and I can kill you guys.
Do you
now.
think the engineers, when they were building it, they were like, now why is this giant cannon feature added to the bottom of the satellite? I mean, we don't need it. It's like, well, you'll never know when you need this giant cannon feature.
Yeah, I don't know what is it like Die Another Day where they're like refocusing the things?
Like,
and
you
it's
can't
like
hack things to make them do completely different things. Like, that'd be like hacking my television to shoot lasers. That's not what it does.
Specifically, it's like hacking your solar panels to shoot lasers.
Yeah.
Still not what they do.
Still something it doesn't do.
Yeah, very literally, that's what it's like.
Yeah.
Because that's what's happening. After he hangs up on America, he tells Cap that he learned how to hack into the satellite after studying those guns. Thanks for those, President Rogers.
Good.
Good work out there. So it's 100% Steve's fault. After a few hours of tense silence where America does not know who's going to die or if when or how.
Oh, because it hasn't fired the laser yet.
He fired it at the reflecting pool to demonstrate that he could. And then he was just like, we'll see what I shoot next.
Those innocent ducks. Son of a bitch.
Yeah, I don't know if he killed anyone there, but whatever. It's an interesting display of power. Then America gets another call. Oh yeah, it's Washington, D.C. Of course. Yeah, you guys are going to be the first target. It's crazy that we would have talked about anyone else being the first target.
Of course.
It's you. Nick Fury tries to take down the satellite, but the security system, I guess, is too well advanced. SHIELD shuttles can't get close. Again.
Whoa, what? Why is the satellite so insanely
A SHIELD
complex?
agent says that he's not even sure if a nuke could get through to it, and I don't know why you would design it that way.
Like, what were the engineers thinking when they were making this?
I'm sure nukes operate a little differently in the vacuum of space. I don't know if they have the same electromagnetic field or whatever, but hey, look, if that's the thing you're designing, be ready for it to be turned into a super weapon. You live in the Marvel universe.
I know, Tony Stark was contracted to build it, and he was just like, Tony, why are we building all these extra shielding systems? Like, no. Look, I do it for all my suits. I feel like we
You
need
gotta make sure it's
safety.
safe. You gotta make sure it's safe.
From, nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Because someone's gonna be throwing nukes at this.
Just in case. I mean, to be fair, it's 1980. They're a little afraid of that, but it's a battery.
Yeah.
I don't feel like this is necessary. Whatever. Point is, Captain America gets to S.H.I.E.L.D. because, of course, he breaks his chains and busts through the bars and punches Red Skull, and he tries to turn the beam away from Washington, which I guess, is it firing now? It's not really made clear. However, possibly due to Steve's interference, very possibly due to his interference, the controls short circuit.
Oh no.
And Red Skull starts wrestling with him and says, "Nine, you fool! Do you not know what you've done? You've reflected the beam from Washington, but the overloaded system will treat your command as a homing signal and incinerate us all!"
Oh no, San Pedro!
If you remember the ending of Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, it's that moment, basically.
Oh, so he's shooting the laser at himself.
Yeah, but he says that it's moving, which to me implies
that a giant laser beam is just cutting down,
slicing across the countryside.
Look, it's not just San Pedro. It's going to be the whole bottom half of the eastern seaboard,
and
as well as the Caribbean.
And Central America.
Yep.
Like, that is not established, so maybe it just turns off and on again. I don't know. I hope so. Anyway, this laser hits the palace, basically, the presidential manor, and it doesn't seem to slice into it. So I think it's just like, oh, we're off, and now we're on over here. So
is it just heating it when it hits?
Well, things are beginning to explode.
Okay.
So, the building's shaking, and there's fire. Skull tries to get to the controls and redirect the beam, but Rogers knocks him clear, and he's a bit winded. He feels like he's out of shape. Like, he's really, like, he needed a workout. He loses sight of Red Skull in the smoke, but he runs outside thinking, if Skull dies down here, yeah, I don't think I would mind. I don't think history would mind either.
Optimism.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the best case scenario, kind of. He gets outside, though, and he sees the satellite dish beginning to turn. Skull must be alive, and he's trying to control the beam and turn it back to Washington. So Rogers goes back inside.
Oh, no.
And as the building crumbles, he fights Red Skull, and I hope turns the beam off, but whatever. Point is, the words repeat in his mind. We are natural counterparts, you and I. We belong together, like good and evil, fire and water, strength and weakness, life and death. Days later, a recovery team searches through the rubble, and all they find is Captain America's shield. A week later, a statue of Captain America is erected at Arlington, and all the superheroes attend the funeral, and Fury gives the eulogy. I know you don't much feel like listening to a speech right now, but somebody's got to say it. Cap's dead, but he chose to die so the country he loved more than anything else could live. And I think it's important to remember that though Cap was the finest man I ever knew, he never considered himself special. He always considered it an honor to be selected to be Captain America. Always thought it reflected not on him, but on the country that made him, the country that he loved. Rest easy, soldier. You've done your job. The Watcher says, but do not mourn for him. Rather mourn for America, a country bereft of her greatest champion. Mourn for us all, but see that his death was not in vain. He doesn't say that to the funeral. That'd be super creepy.
That would be really weird if the Watcher showed up.
No, it's the last page, and it's got just a mural of Captain America, and he's speaking to the audience, and there's a little caption at the bottom from 2 Timothy. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the course. I have kept the faith.
Wow.
And that's the end of the issue. Which, interesting side note, Civil War, the crossover comic. Now, I haven't seen the movie, so I have no idea. But the comic ended with Captain America dying. Not in the comic, but in the subsequent issues afterwards.
Yeah, he got shot, I believe.
And in another crossover comic...
Spoilers, I guess.
For that comic's from 2005.
True.
2005, 2006, right around there. 2007? Whatever. Point is, there was another crossover comic. God, this was a bad time. A hard time to read comics. There's another crossover comic that showed his funeral. And like half the attendees, or half the superheroes could not attend. Like Spider-Man and, Doctor Strange, they could not go.
That's right, because they were still on the run.
And Nick Fury was underground at this point. He could definitely not attend. There was still a statue, and there was, a eulogy, but it was by Tony Stark, who was not drunk, but definitely stuttering, and like, people thought he might have been drunk, and like it was like
this was a time when everybody hated Tony Stark.
That was exactly the moment that we were like, oh yeah, no, this is the worst guy in the world right now. Like, not that moment, but like that comic and that year, basically. So like, this is actually the good version of that. Of like, oh, he got a funeral and he got a send off from everyone who got to attend. Whereas in that comic, it was like, yeah, he didn't. Not everyone got to be there.
And that's a really dark way to do Captain America's funeral, too. Especially the person giving the eulogy was definitely the guy in direct connection to potentially his death.
Yeah, responsible for his death. And there also, it was raining, and here it's pointed out that, like, although it feels like the nation should be mourning, it's a beautiful day.
It's a real Game of Thrones comic ending, is what we're talking about here.
Civil War.
Yes. This is a little bit more of that, it's a bittersweet ending for Cap. Yeah. But it definitely is a nicer send-off.
It's a pay-it-forward ending.
Yeah. Thanks, Watcher, for sharing your what-if random dimension of Captain America was the president.
I'm just going to cross out Beyonder and write in Watcher, because I don't know where I got it in my head that it was Beyonder.
Sorry, Beyonder.
That's the guy who did Secret Wars. We'll get to that at some point.
Eventually, we got to get to Secret Wars.
I guess. Oh, God, that's going to be an intense episode or two.
Oh, yes. All right, guys. Well, that was our main segment, and that'll be taking us to our game, Super-Mundane. All right, this is Super-Mundane. This is the game where I will name a mundane task or activity, and Mike and I will have to name which superhero of DC or Marvel is the best and which is the worst at this specific activity. So, Mike, for this episode, our Super-Mundane is, who would be the best and who would be the worst at hosting a game night? Now, this is a person who's going to have to organize a bunch of people to get together, going to have to get them to focus and play a game, maybe provide some snacks, have a good time, keep a good atmosphere. It's a little bit of project managing, but a little bit more social interaction as well.
For the worst, I would suggest either the Vision or probably my favorite, Red Tornado.
Oh, wow.
I can picture it happening for both of them. I feel like
Both androids.
both
Totally terrible at social situations.
trying to figure out human emotions. I like Red Tornado for it because I feel like, at least in the cartoons I've seen him in, he's always struggled a little more as far as figuring out what humans are and like how humanity works, and like he would try to do it. I don't know. I feel like the Vision would be more likely to try it.
He would.
But I don't think he'd be as bad.
Especially in the current Vision comic run, which I reviewed in one of my polls. Like, he's definitely trying to live that suburban life and imitate, what is the suburban lifestyle. And having a game night, quote unquote, would totally be that. I do love the idea or vision in my mind of the Red Tornado like playing a board game and then like doing his powers accidentally and just blowing the pieces off the board.
Or like not comprehending like the minutia, or like not the minutia, but like the just knowing the rules and just being like really strict but not meaning to be.
Right.
And like, we have heated the cookies for 375 degrees, and like just like trying to host,
Like,
but
dude,
like
too much, a little too much.
Yeah, he'd be a little bit micromanagey. I like Red Tornado for being bad at that.
Yeah, I like it. Red Tornado, the worst at hosting a game night, but who would be the best? I mean, would Tony Stark? Is this the part where Tony Stark really lands it? I mean, Tony Stark is fun enough.
He's fun.
He's also,
What kind of games would be played at a...
Twister?
Yeah.
Or,
See,
Monopoly? He'd be really good at Monopoly.
I don't know if he has the patience for Monopoly.
He's like, I would just buy all of your property.
Yeah,
just buy it out.
I have all the money. Also, his companies do keep going under for various supervillain-related reasons, but still.
Yeah. Well, that shows how good he is at Monopoly. He bounces back really well all the time.
I suppose.
But also, who wants to play Monopoly? Nobody does.
No one wants to play
nobody
it.
enjoys
No
it.
one wants to play it against Tony Stark.
Yeah,
It's not important because I don't think he's our best.
True. Who would be our best?
I feel like She-Hulk would be real good at this.
Ooh. Well, here's the thing. She doesn't have the anger problems of her cousin.
No.
But she does sometimes get upset and will smash things, and I don't want to play Risk with She-Hulk because I don't want to have her destroy the table or myself if I beat her.
Sure. I feel like she's a better loser than we give her credit for, but I will acquiesce that is a good point.
I mean, I would call in evidence, which you can in the Marvel Universe, because comics are...
Admissible evidence.
Specifically, even in the She-Hulk run.
Very much so.
In the first issue, she destroys that table at the attorney's office. So, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, she was getting fired.
Yeah, it's true.
A little different than losing a game.
Well, hey, I don't know. Have you ever played some late hours of Risk? It can get pretty intense.
I don't play
real mad.
That's why I don't play Risk.
That's true.
I kind of want to go with someone like Wally West, like someone younger. Even though I know Wally West is no longer... Well, now he is again because the DC...
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
These are all eternal
Yeah,
people.
none of them are real. Let's start with there.
Yeah, right out the gate.
None of these people are real.
Wally West, I mean, would we be worried that he'd be cheating? Because he's so fast. I mean...
Fair point. He'd also...
and he's a jokester.
He'd bring all the snacks and then eat them all. So.
And he'd eat all those snacks.
Interesting. But I like the idea of going young. I feel like Blue Beetle...
True.
Be a good pick.
Blue Beetle would be good.
I feel like he's really sociable.
Yeah.
He's a little bit bumbling, but like he's got a good heart and people would go. He would people would enjoy themselves. I feel like he could do a good job. Also, I might have to break our rule.
Ooh, what is it?
Spider-Man might be good at something.
What?
I feel like Spider-Man...
Mike.
I feel like Spider-Man...
This show has shown that Spider-Man has almost totally and completely accidentally killed so many people.
I feel like Spider-Man might be your guy.
Wow.
He's just nerdy enough to be as into board games as like we are.
That's true.
I feel like he could be that kind of nerd. I feel like if he could get it together to have the night, he could do it. As I say that, it sounds less like Peter Parker.
To get people together and not have it be ruined by Doc Ock.
Well, let's be fair. That is kind of true of everyone.
That is kind of
to
true
a
of
degree.
But here's the thing.
It does happen to him more often.
To be fair, it happens to him almost constantly in his personal life.
Yeah.
To people like Captain America, it's kind of like it just happens every now and then. At least from what I've seen, I don't see like Captain America being like, "Oh, I wish I could finish this date, but the Skrulls again."
It's because he doesn't have a social life.
Yeah, they'll say, there you go.
His personal life barely matters. It's all S.H.I.E.L.D. related. Because he doesn't need to work at a newspaper. It doesn't make any sense.
That's true.
It's dumb.
But
he should be on the GI Bill.
But Peter Parker's life is almost constantly interrupted, especially if it's something important and especially if it involves multiple friends, so that he can disappoint all of them and have Mary Jane be like,
So here's the question. Is he hosting the game night as Peter Parker, or is he hosting the game night as Spider-Man? Because if it's just a fun game night at Avengers Mansion, I think it's fine.
Whoa, you're right. Actually, at Avengers Mansion, out of anyone, because really, if I think about the other universe, I can't imagine any of the Justice League playing board games.
I can to a point.
Only because I would see, like, no one would play because they played once and Batman destroyed them and they never played
Yeah, no,
again.
you're nailed it. Yeah.
Like, they would never play with Batman ever again.
And, like, Aquaman wouldn't be entirely sure of the rules.
Yeah.
And, like, everyone accused Superman of cheating, but he isn't cheating. But, like, Batman's using that to his advantage.
Yeah.
And, like, no one suspects him, which is
And Martian Manhunter
crazy.
couldn't play anymore because he could read everybody's minds.
Yeah, he had to sit it out.
Yeah.
But on the DC's, or the Marvel side, rather, I feel like Spider-Man hosts a wicked game night at the Avengers
Right,
Mansion.
he probably does. He's just funny enough to like calm people when they're getting too frustrated. He's totally nerdy enough to know the fun games that nobody knows about.
Yep.
And I mean, yeah, he's got the strength to hold back people in case they go a little crazy.
I feel like your game nights are worse than my game nights.
You don't have people fight each other at all game nights?
I mean, in
Like
Dungeons
physical
and Dragons,
contests of murder and
like
strength?
actually in real life.
Yeah, of course. Isn't this like, man, I've got to get new friends, guys.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I really do think Spider-Man, yeah, you're right.
We found it. We
God.
found the thing that Spider-Man can do.
He can have a game night at Avengers.
I feel
now,
like
Peter Parker fails
I
miserably.
feel like he could even do it as Peter Parker, because if he needed to leave, those things kind of run themselves.
That's true. That's the point of board games. They have
Yeah.
rules, and you can just play them without someone. Wow. Peter Parker,
yeah.
Spider-Man is the best at something.
Guys, if you feel like he shouldn't have been,
Let us know.
on Twitter, I guess, or email, like
It's only also perfect that this was on our 2nd year anniversary that it took us 2 years to find something that Spider-Man is the best at.
it has been an unspoken rule for a long time. We have spoken it before. We haven't addressed it in a long time, but it's been in the back of my mind. Spider-Man can't be the right answer at anything. He is at this one. He could do this.
He can do this. Congrats, Spider-Man. You made it after 53 episodes. Well, guys, that was episode 53 of Because Comics.
I would love to see the Avengers play Pandemic.
Oh my god, that would be so meta in so many amazing ways.
It'd be weird, man. Just any
We
modern
failed
game.
to save the world.
Like, oh man, just think about the Avengers sitting down and playing Betrayal at House on the Hill. Like,
Imagine what they'd name the viruses in Pandemic. They could totally probably name real
it's
viruses.
the Ultron virus, and like
It's the legacy virus. Oh god. But yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
But guys, that was episode 53 of Because Comics.
that was our 2-year anniversary episode.
We'll be posting a new episode every other week. If you'd like to download more episodes or check out other similar podcasts,
Similar podcasts.
there's a few of them out there. Head over to partialarc.com. That's
Ooh.
arc with a C.
Cool.
Of course, you can email us any questions or tell us why we were wrong about picking Spider-Man for this episode at becausecomics@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr, all at Partial Arc.
Did you get your Tumblr at IKEA?
I did.
Is there an umlaut in there?
And be sure to check out more content from our comic boy wonder, Mike Christensen,
Hey.
at partialarc.com, where he writes articles every Tuesday and Thursday.
Also, a little plug ahead for episode 50 of Friday Night Quests is coming up.
Oh,
in
yes.
just over a week.
Something like that.
Not this Friday, but next Friday.
I think that's how time works, yes.
Yeah. That's
It's a crazy episode.
Oh man, I think it's my favorite episode we've ever done.
Oh, God.
I'm really excited.
Guys, check it out. And as always, thanks for listening. And remember,
Baskin Robbins always finds out.
it does. Baskin Robbins. You know what? The crew at Baskin Robbins could have broken into that satellite.
Okay. How do you think finding out works? What do you think finding out is?
Finding out
I was
is,
using this
is
in the
when
context-
someone uses like a robot suit
Okay.
to travel into the human body at a subatomic level.
Hey, guys.
You know,
Write us letters and tell Jay what things are.
that would be great. Because, guys, I can tell you right now, going through life, real challenge
It's an
for me.
adventure.
It is. All right, guys. Thanks for being with us for 2 years.
What?
Because comics.